I opened the trunk of my car with a puff of white breath in the frozen morning air. The gifts were stacked just the way I'd planned, silver and blue wrapping, each one hand-tied with matching ribbon. Nestled between the packages was the pie, carefully tucked into Grandma May's old ceramic dish, the crust still holding its crimped edge from the night before. My gloved hands trembled slightly, more from nerves than cold. I stood there for a long moment, just looking at it all. My apartment behind me sat dark and quiet, the little tree in the corner glowing faintly through the blinds. I'd unplugged the lights and watered the plant one last time, the same way people check the stove twice before a long trip. I didn't want anything to feel abandoned. Not after the way I had felt these past few years, always leaving something behind to be there for someone else. Dana, my manager at the agency, had lifted an eyebrow when I told her I wasn't going to Jamaica. "You sure? You've earned this retreat," she'd said. "Christmas with family," I replied, trying to sound confident. "Besides, we haven't been together in a while." She didn't push, but her silence said everything. Truth was, I hadn't really been home for Christmas in almost 3 years. Last year I'd caught the flu. The year before that, a deadline had stretched into holiday week. But this year, I cleared the decks. I bought gifts early, booked time off, practiced Grandma's apple pie recipe so many times I could hear her voice correcting me in my head. "Don't rush the cinnamon, baby. Let it breathe." I even splurged on better apples. The drive from Chicago to Erie wasn't long in summer, 8 hours if the weather held, but it was December. By the time I hit the Indiana border, the skies were spitting snow. By Toledo, traffic had slowed to a cautious crawl. Semi-trucks loomed beside me, kicking slush onto my windshield as I white-knuckled the wheel. I checked the time, 3:48 p.m., and called Mom to let her know I might be late. She picked up after 2 rings. "We're having dinner at 6, she said flatly. "No, drive safe, no, can't wait to see you. Just, we'll save you a plate." I tried to ignore the tightness in her voice. "I've got gifts for everyone," I said. "I even made pie. Grandma May's recipe." A pause. "Oh, that's nice. Drive safe." She hung up before I could say anything else. That pause stayed with me the next 100 miles. Around 5, I stopped at a gas station to stretch and top off. My phone buzzed. Zach. Just a text. "Hey, think you can chip in a little extra for holiday stuff?" Things got pricey. I didn't answer, just slid my card into the pump and watched the numbers climb. $1,000 had already gone their way earlier this month. What else did they need? Twilight had settled by the time I turned onto Maple Avenue. Snow had gathered along the curbs, the street lamps casting golden halos on the pavement. The houses looked like postcards, rooflines glowing with white lights, reeds on every door. Our old place was at the end of the block, still the same pale green with navy shutters, but something about it looked elevated. The porch had been redone. There were garlands and candles in every window. And the driveway was full. A red SUV, a black Lexus, a champagne-colored sedan I didn't recognize. Only Mom's old blue Honda remained familiar. I parked at the curb and took a moment to check my reflection in the mirror. My lips were dry. I dabbed on some balm, smoothed my hair. From inside came the muffled sound of laughter and the faint clink of glasses. Someone was hosting. It was my childhood home, but it felt like a stranger's party. I gathered the gifts, careful not to tilt the pie, and walked up the shoveled path. My boots crunched in the snow. I rehearsed the smile I'd wear when Mom opened the door, a half surprise, half see. I made it. The door opened before I knocked. She stood there in an elegant black dress I'd never seen before, wine glass in hand, makeup pristine. For a split second, her eyes lit up. Then cold. "Sorry," she said, stepping halfway into the frame, her voice loud enough for someone inside to hear. "I think you have the wrong house." I blinked. "Mom, it's me." Her smile didn't return. "There's no one named Natalie here," she said calmly. "You must be mistaken." I shifted the pie in my arm, confused. "I just talked to you a few hours ago. I said I was coming." She looked over her shoulder, then back at me, her voice now a harsh whisper. "This isn't a good time. You should have called to confirm." I did. She stepped forward, lowering her voice even more. "Please don't make a scene. Just go." A man's voice echoed from inside. "Evelyn? Who's at the door?" She turned slightly. "Nobody," she called. "Just someone lost." I stood frozen, snow stinging my cheeks. The pie's warmth seeped into my gloves, no longer comforting, just heavy. Behind her, I could see the glow of the tree, the flicker of candles, silhouettes of people moving in the living room. "Let me give you the gifts, at least," I said softly. "They're for you. And Zach." She glanced again behind her, then leaned closer. "You can't be here, Natalie. Not tonight." Then she shut the door. I didn't move. The snow fell harder now, frosting the top of the pie dish. My fingers loosened. The dish slipped from my grip and landed with a muffled thud. I watched the crust collapse, steam rising into the cold night. I stood there for one breath, then another. Still no one came. I hadn't moved. The pie lay shattered at my feet, steam rising from the broken crust like a ghost escaping. Snow clung to the cashmere scarf peeking out of torn wrapping, its soft blue corner soaking through. My arms, once full, now hung limp at my sides. The gifts I had chosen so carefully sprawled across the porch like discarded baggage. I looked at the door. Still closed. Still silent. For a second, I convinced myself this had to be a mistake. Maybe Mom had just been overwhelmed. Maybe she hadn't seen me clearly in the dim light. Maybe this was all just stress. But then I remembered the tone in her voice. Steady. Unapologetic. Not panicked. Not confused. Intentional. I took a small step back, heart pounding, chest tightening. My boots crunched in the snow. The wind had picked up, tiny needles against my cheeks. Somewhere inside, people laughed. The clink of silverware on china echoed through the door. Someone was telling a story, their voice animated, rising with a punchline I couldn't hear. A woman laughed too loudly in response. The warmth inside pressed through the windows. Candlelight danced on the curtains. Holiday music floated faintly from behind the walls. I had pictured the scene for weeks, me walking in, being wrapped in an unexpected hug, catching up, finding home again. I hadn't pictured this. Then, footsteps. The door opened again, wider this time. I straightened, hopeful despite everything. It was Zach. He looked freshly showered, in a crisp button-down I didn't recognize, a watch on his wrist that shimmered briefly in the light. His hair was styled, his expression almost pleasant until he saw me. For a second, his features froze. Surprise. Then calculation. "Natalie," he said, his tone a mix of disbelief and something else, something performative. "Hey," I breathed, trying to force a smile, though my voice cracked. He glanced over his shoulder, then stepped out and gently pulled the door halfway closed behind him. From inside, someone called, "Zach?" "The toast's about to start." "Coming," he replied, then turned back to me, lowering his voice. "I thought you weren't coming. I told Mom I was on my way this morning." "Right," he said. Yeah, she mentioned maybe you'd changed your mind. I didn't. I swallowed hard. I drove all day. I brought pie. I have gifts. His eyes flicked to the mess at my feet, and for the briefest second, I thought I saw shame. Or maybe just discomfort. I mean, this is kind of unexpected, Nat, he said, scratching the back of his neck. Mom's been trying to impress some people lately. You know how she gets. Big investor in her new things here. Country club friends. She didn't want any surprises. Surprises? I echoed, voice sharper now. I'm your sister, not a party crasher. I didn't say that, he replied quickly. I just mean, you know how sensitive she is about appearances. You probably should have texted first. I stared at him. I did. I called her this afternoon. She told me dinner was at 6. I said I'd try to make it. He opened his mouth, closed it again. The silence between us widened. From inside came another chorus of laughter, glasses clinking. Then someone called again. Zach, seriously. They're waiting. Zach shifted. Listen, he said, voice softening. Let's not make this a whole thing. Maybe we meet up tomorrow, just you and me. Get coffee. Talk it out. You know I care. I blinked. The wind had numbed my cheeks, or maybe it was something else. You care, I repeated, toneless. Of course I do. I nodded slowly. Fine. Coffee. He smiled like that fixed everything. Great. Text me your hotel and I'll swing by. And just like that, he turned and disappeared inside. The door clicked shut behind him. I stood there a moment longer. No one reopened the door. No one came for the fallen gifts. I bent, carefully picking up the scarf, now damp and speckled with dirt. The pie dish lay cracked in 3 pieces, ceramic sharp at the edges. I left it. I made my way back to the car slowly, footsteps heavy. Inside, I sat in the driver's seat, my breath fogging the window. I didn't start the engine. I didn't cry. Not yet. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Zach. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I answered. Hey, he said, tone light, like none of what had just happened needed context. You still outside? In the car, I said, voice quiet. Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure you weren't upset or anything. I mean, I didn't know Mom was gonna pull that. I didn't reply. I told her you might show, he went on. But you know how she is. High-strung. And with the spa stuff happening and all, she's been intense. She said there was no Natalie here. A pause. She was trying to avoid a scene. You know how she gets. She didn't even flinch. Zach laughed, but it sounded hollow. Yeah, she's theatrical. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm just saying, he continued, don't take it so personally, all right? Let's get coffee tomorrow, like I said. Reset. I'll text the hotel, I said flatly. Awesome. Love you, sis. The line didn't disconnect. There was shuffling. A voice in the background. Mom, maybe? Then Zach's voice again, lower now, muffled, but still too clear. Crisis averted, he said with a chuckle. She bought it. Another voice, female, laughed. Seriously? She thinks we're doing coffee. Still wants in. She always does, the woman replied. Zach laughed again. Still thinks helping with rent buys her a seat at the table. A third voice chimed in, Mom's. As long as the money clears, she can think whatever she wants. I sat very still. The phone, still in my hand, trembled. Snow had started falling again. Soft, relentless, quiet. Inside, the party resumed without interruption. And outside, in the dark of the car, I listened to them laugh. I sat motionless in the car, phone still pressed to my ear, long after the laughter had faded into the background. The call hadn't dropped. Zach must have walked away from it, oblivious. Every few moments, a voice would filter through, his, hers, someone else's. I wasn't supposed to hear any of it, but I did. Did you see what she brought? Zach's voice returned, amused, careless. Pie. Like we're in some Hallmark movie. Another chuckle. She actually handmade that scarf. Remember when she was obsessed with Etsy? My mother, cool and clear, I told Richard it was from my daughter. He asked if she was joining us. I said, she's unpredictable. They laughed again. It wasn't cruel laughter, not sharp or dramatic. Just the casual amusement of people who had long stopped thinking of me as someone real. My hands were numb. From the cold, maybe. Or from holding on too long. The motel was just off the interstate, its neon sign flickering through the light snow. I checked in with my driver's license and a hollow voice. The clerk didn't ask questions. Room 118 smelled faintly of bleach and something floral. I dropped my overnight bag on the chair, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the blank television screen. My phone buzzed. Voicemail from Mom. Voicemail from Zach. New text message. Come on, Natalie. Don't be dramatic. I didn't listen to them yet. I opened my laptop, logged into my bank, and pulled up the transfer history. There they were. Every $800 labeled mortgage support. Every $500 to Zach labeled car expenses, job prep, insurance. Occasional spikes, $1, $200 for furnace repair, $600 for Zach's dental work, $2,000 for Evelyn's hospital bills. I opened a new spreadsheet and began typing. Date, amount, purpose, notes. March 12, 2019, $800 mortgage, first recurring transfer. June 22nd, 2020, $5,000 car for Zach. He got a speeding ticket that summer. November 4th, 2021, $1,000 holiday bonus, she texted, just for something special. The list grew. Line by line. Page after page. By the time I reached the end, the total stared back at me, $83,459.72. I stared at the number until it blurred. That could have been a down payment on a condo, a graduate degree, a year-long sabbatical, a wedding, a child's future. Mine. Instead, it funded country club fees, Aspen getaways, and apparently a boutique spa. My breath came short. Not in a panicked way, just the stunned realization of finally seeing what I hadn't wanted to admit. I opened my email next, searched Zach. His messages followed a pattern, quick updates, exaggerated optimism, a small request. Always softened by if you can or no pressure, but always followed by a transaction. Then I found it. An email from 2 years ago. A forward from Zach that included a thread between him and Evelyn. He'd meant to send it just to her. She agreed to the extra $1,000. That should cover the boat deposit. If we need storage costs, we'll make something up about the transmission next month. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened each credit account. Removed them as authorized users. Marked the cards as lost. I called my credit union's 24/7 line and waited on hold for 15 minutes. When the woman answered, I gave my name and said simply, I need to report financial abuse by family members. I'd like to flag several accounts and close transfers. She didn't pause. Let's get that started. By 2:37 a.m., the financial web was severed. Every transfer canceled. Every card disabled. Every auto payment blocked. I sat back and exhaled. The silence was enormous. A part of me still expected something: guilt, regret, a sudden wave of grief. But all I felt was space. Clean, cold, clarifying space. Eventually, hunger pulled me out of the fog. I drove a few blocks down to a 24-hour diner, the kind with pink vinyl booths and blinking lights. The waitress brought me a turkey sandwich with a slice of pickle and a cup of coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner all night. She smiled kindly but didn't ask questions. Maybe I wasn't the only person spending Christmas at a diner in a borrowed coat, looking through people instead of at them. I scrolled through my phone and typed one final thing. To Evelyn Harper, Zach Harper. Subject: financial termination. Effective immediately, all financial support is canceled. Records of transfers totaling $83,459.72 have been saved for documentation. Do not contact me for money again. I hit send. Just like that. The waitress returned to refill my cup. Everything okay, hon? She asked. I smiled faintly. Getting there. She nodded, walked away. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed again. Voicemail. From Mom. I pressed play. After all we've done for you, she began, her voice tight. This is how you repay us? Cutting us off on Christmas? I can't believe how ungrateful you've become. You owe us, Natalie. You owe us. We gave you everything. And now you think you're too good for your own family. I listened until the end. Then I deleted it. Outside, the snow had stopped. The streets were quiet. A single set of tire tracks led out of the parking lot. I followed them. I left the motel just after sunrise. The snow had stopped, but the world still felt frozen, quiet, indifferent. My breath fogged the windshield as I scraped away the thin sheet of ice clinging to the glass. My gloves were stiff. My body ached in places I didn't know could ache from emotional impact alone. I didn't play music. I didn't check the rear view. Just pulled onto the interstate and headed west, toward Chicago. Toward silence. Somewhere near South Bend, a text came through. Zach, okay, you made your point. Very dramatic. Now please turn the cards back on. Then another, I have bills due Monday. And finally, Mom is freaking out. You ruined Christmas. Congrats. I didn't respond. At a rest stop in Indiana, I parked beneath a flickering lamp and opened my banking app. 2 recurring transfers, $800 to Evelyn Harper, $500 to Zach Harper. I stared at them for a full minute. Then I tapped cancel. Confirm. Confirm. They disappeared like they'd never existed. 5 years of habit, erased in 2 clicks. The lie I'd been telling myself for years was the first thing to go. That if I just gave enough, they'd love me enough. That love looked like usefulness. That family meant obligation. They didn't love me. They loved the funding. I opened my email again. Pulled up the lease sublet I'd signed 2 years ago when Zach claimed he was between places and needed something stable. My garden-level apartment in the back of my building was cozy, quiet, affordable. He'd begged to stay there, promising it was temporary. I'd given him a reduced rent, even covered utilities for 6 months, just to help. I called Mr. Kaplan, my elderly landlord, who answered with a raspy hello, despite the holiday. Hi, Mr. Kaplan, this is Natalie Harper. I'm calling about the back unit. He paused. Zach, still living there? Yes, I said. But he's been misrepresenting his financial situation. He's not temporarily displaced. He's been using the address while living full-time in Erie and subletting without approval. Mr. Kaplan sighed. That's unfortunate, Natalie. On Christmas, no less. I know, I said. but I need the agreement terminated as soon as legally allowable. I'll send the paperwork first thing Tuesday. You're doing the right thing. I thanked him and ended the call. My hands trembled, not with regret, but with adrenaline. Back in Chicago, the apartment felt cold in a different way. Not empty, cleansed. I tossed my coat over the chair, plugged in my phone, and poured myself a glass of water. The Christmas tree lights blinked faintly, a stubborn glow against everything else that had dimmed. More texts. Evelyn, you've crossed a line. Evelyn, we trusted you. Zach, we have nothing without that account. Do you want us to fail? Evelyn, this is heartless. After all we've done. Zach, people are asking where you are. We're covering for you. Evelyn, fix this now or don't call yourself my daughter. I silenced the phone. At noon, I called the 24-hour credit support line and reported 2 cards compromised. When the woman asked if I'd like to flag the accounts for suspected fraud or manipulation, I simply said yes. She read through the script carefully, kindly. We'll send confirmation emails and new card numbers shortly. Next, I opened my savings account, one I'd created a year ago but barely touched, and moved what was left from my emergency fund into it. No more joint planning. No more shared survival. The paper trail was mine now. Mid-afternoon, Dana called. Hey, she said, just checking in. Saw your Slack status was still 000, but wanted to make sure you were okay. I hesitated. I'm okay, I said. Just done. Done. Being useful to people who don't see me. She paused. That's a powerful kind of done. I guess so. You ever need backup, just say the word. I managed a small laugh. Thanks, Dana. As the sun set, I ate dinner on the floor of my apartment, a sandwich from the corner deli, still wrapped in wax paper. No tree skirt. No music. No matching wine glasses. But the quiet felt earned. I opened my phone again, not to respond, but to listen. Just once. Evelyn's voicemail had come in while I was talking to Dana. I hit play. You think this makes you better? Cutting off your own family on Christmas? You think it proves you're independent? All it proves is how petty you are. Vindictive. Cold. And alone. You'll be back. They always come back. Her voice was even. Controlled. Like she was reading it from a script rehearsed years ago. I let the silence hang. Then I tapped delete. And whispered, to no one, alone is better than used. The waiting room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and paper. A soft instrumental loop played overhead, something vaguely jazzy, meant to soothe but oddly disorienting. I sat on a navy couch that sank more than expected, clutching a paper intake form with half-filled answers. Name: Natalie Harper. Reason for visit: I'm not sure yet. Emergency contact. Left blank. A door opened with a soft click. Natalie? A calm voice. Steady. Dr. Karen Moore. Glasses perched on her nose, clipboard in hand. She smiled like we'd already met. Her office was warm, brighter than I'd expected. The couch here was firmer. There were books lined neatly on 2 shelves, a humidifier puffing lavender mist into the air. So, she said gently, what brings you in today? I hesitated. My fingers found the hem of my sleeve. They used me, I said, too quickly. Then nothing. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It just was. That's a beginning, she said. It took several sessions to say more. Words came slowly, like limbs thawing after frostbite. I told her about the money, yes, but also the expectations. The way I became the responsible one. The giver. The fixer. Even as a child, I cooked dinners when Mom worked late. covered for Zach, held everything together. They didn't just take money, I said one week in February. They took my role and ran with it. Then shut the door behind me. Dr. Moore nodded. It sounds like what we call parentification. When a child is placed in the role of emotional or financial caretaker. I thought it was love. Conditional love often looks like loyalty, she said. Until you stop performing. Outside, the snow had started to melt. Chicago's sidewalks were still gritty, but daffodils poked through near my building. I noticed birds again. Laughter from children in the courtyard. Not everything hurt to hear anymore. Lorraine lived one floor down. She was in her 70s, wore chunky earrings, and baked more than she ate. One Sunday in March, she knocked on my door holding a Pyrex dish and said, "You're coming up for dinner." No excuses. Her apartment was filled with cinnamon, soup, and soft jazz. Her card group was already gathered. Ed and Frankie, twins who'd known each other since kindergarten. Margie, a retired music teacher with perfect posture. And Jim, who barely spoke but smiled often. They didn't ask questions. They just passed plates and told stories about late trains and bad plumbing. I brought lemon bars from a boxed mix. No one complained. Each Sunday after, I brought something more homemade, roasted carrots with thyme, then a cranberry crisp. Lorraine called it my therapy through cooking stage. I called it survival. You've been carrying invisible weight, Dana had said during a check-in at work. Maybe it's time to set it down. I nodded, but didn't respond. I wasn't ready yet. Not fully, but the weight had shifted. In April, I signed up for a weekend photography class. Just a few hours on Saturday's composition, light color theory. I brought my old Nikon out of storage, dusted off the lens. The first photo I took was of a neighbor's dog mignon. It wasn't brilliant, but it was mine. One evening in May, after Sunday dinner, I stayed behind to help Lorraine with dishes. The others had gone. Her windows were cracked open, and the smell of lilacs drifted in. "You know," she said, "scrubbing a pan. You're not broken." I glanced at her. Sometimes I feel like I must be. "No," she said simply. "You just trusted the wrong people with the softest parts of you." I swallowed. The words sank deeper than any I'd heard in months. We finished the dishes in silence, the kind that felt restful. Later that night, back in my apartment, I checked my email before bed. Spam, newsletter, utility bill. It was earlier in the week, in the coffee shop near my photography class, the one with wobbly tables and the best cinnamon scones. I was stirring a splash of oat milk into my coffee when I heard my name. "Natalie?" I turned. Ak stood near the pickup counter, holding a drink. His eyes looked tired, his shirt a little wrinkled. For a moment, we just stared at each other. He smiled first. "Wow, didn't expect to see you here." "Hi," I said. Neutral. Calm. He walked over slowly. "You look good." I nodded. "Thanks." There was a beat of silence before he said, "Mom asks about you sometimes." I didn't answer that. He cleared his throat. We lost the house. The spa failed. Richard bailed. Things we've been rough." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said gently without offering more. Zach watched me. "You seem okay." "I am," I replied. "I found something better." He didn't ask what that meant. Just gave a small, awkward nod and walked out, drink in hand. I didn't follow him. Didn't look back. That was the last I saw of my brother. Now it's Saturday evening and golden light floods my apartment. It's July in Chicago, warm, with just enough breeze to keep the air moving. My balcony door is propped open with a stack of paperbacks. Folding chairs line the small outdoor space. There's laughter in the kitchen. Something is baking in the oven. Dana is helping slice fruit in the kitchen. Lorraine is humming as she adjusts the tablecloth. The card group, Ed, Frankie, Margie, Jim, they're all here, along with a neighbor or two I've gotten to know over the spring. We're not doing anything fancy. Grilled vegetables, chicken thighs in lemon garlic marinade, Dana's famous potato salad. Lemonade in mason jars. Jazz from the speaker in the corner. People bring their own forks and folding chairs if they have them. It's not perfect, but it's real. Mind if I say a little grace? Margie asks as we sit. Heads nod. A few hands reach for each other, not out of obligation, but habit. Thank you, she says simply, eyes closed. For warm food, soft days, and people who show up with pie. Amen. I open my eyes. Lorraine winks. That pie better not disappoint. We laugh. We pass plates. I refill drinks. No one's trying too hard. No one's keeping score. At one point, I catch myself just watching the way Dana jokes with Jim. How Ed and Frankie still argue over card rules even at the dinner table. Lorraine's gentle fussing over everyone's napkins. No one here needs me to earn my place. They're here because they want to be. Later, the light shifts. The city takes on that early evening hue, soft and golden, the kind that makes the world feel gentle. I step onto the balcony, mug of coffee in hand, and let the quiet settle around me. Behind me, the kitchen hums. The scent of peach cobbler wafts through the door. Laughter rises and falls like waves. This city isn't where I grew up. These people didn't share my blood. But they picked up the fork next to me. They stayed. They listened. And I chose them. Sometimes, that's how family begins. As the laughter drifted in from my kitchen and the city lights blinked on, I realized something quiet but certain. This peace wasn't inherited. I built it. One choice, one boundary, one honest connection at a time. Sometimes, the deepest grief isn't losing others, it's losing the version of yourself that kept trying to be enough for them. But healing begins the moment you stop proving and start choosing. And family? It's not who shares your blood. It's who shows up with clean forks and open hearts. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever had to redefine love, rebuild trust, or choose yourself, I'd be honored to hear your journey. Sometimes sharing is how we all come home again.